We all want to learn things quickly and completely these days. You know what I mean, right? Like
Yes.
without getting bogged down. And you're here because you want to get big and strong.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we're diving into today. You guys gave us 101 Greatest Exercises for Size and Strength by Jason Ferruggia, which is a great resource full of both classic and maybe some lesser-known exercises designed to help you build muscle and increase your power.
It's a huge book. Yeah, and we're going to be pulling out the most effective exercises.
Yeah,
And we're going to explain why they are so effective. So you're not just doing random exercises. You're actually understanding why they're working. And that's where I think people have those aha moments
right.
where it's like, oh, wow, okay, I get it now.
Absolutely.
And covers everything from your legs to your neck. It's comprehensive, guys. So we're going to pinpoint those absolute powerhouses.
Yeah, we're going to give you a really carefully curated selection of these exercises to help you cut through all the noise and all the information out there, and also give you really good understanding of the principles behind these exercises. So you can kind of streamline your training, concentrate on what's really going to give you those results.
Yeah. So starting with lower body power. Lower body power is the foundation.
Yeah.
And, what exercise is the king of all exercises?
I think it would have to be the deadlift. Ferruggia himself calls it probably the single greatest exercise there is.
Yeah. And it's funny because when you look at the deadlift, we're talking about what muscles? Traps, upper back, lats, lower back, biceps, forearms, glutes, hamstrings, quads. It's almost like a full body workout in itself.
It is.
Yeah.
And it also teaches you to use your entire body as one unit. So, it's one thing to be able to lift a certain amount of weight. It's another thing to be able to do it safely and do it with proper form. And that's what the deadlift really teaches you.
I also like how he breaks down the form really well. The bar should be about 1 inch from your shins, your grip shoulder width apart, stance slightly narrower, head up, back arched, 45-degree angle.
Yeah. Big key with these big compound lifts is to brace your core. Really take a big breath in and brace your core as if you're about to be punched in the stomach before you lift, because that's going to create a lot of internal pressure that's going to protect your spine.
Yeah. And the lift should be pulling up and back, leg drive. Descent is sitting back, like you're going to sit in a chair. You don't bend your knees till the bar passes.
Yeah.
And then reset. And then he goes into all these great variations. The trap bar deadlift is the one where you step inside the hexagon.
The trap bar deadlift is a little bit easier if you have flexibility issues getting into that proper position.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you have a little bit of back problems, it can be a little bit easier because the weight is more centered, so there's less stress on the lower back. And it allows you to have a more upright torso.
The rack deadlift is one where you're going to be doing partial deadlifts off the pins. And he says the higher the pins, typically the more weight you can use.
Yeah. The rack pull is a great exercise. Not only can you target the upper, the middle, and the lower back, but it can also help you with your lockout strength if you have any sticking points with the regular deadlift.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're also really good for traps.
Yeah. He loves them for traps. Then there's the snatch grip deadlift. That's the one where you have to go super wide grip, like almost outside the rings.
Yeah. The snatch grip deadlift really increases the range of motion, which is going to make you work harder, and it also really builds the hamstring. So it's going to be a little more hamstring dominant than the regular deadlift.
And then he also likes to do deadlifts off of mats. So it's like doing a deficit, like standing on a little platform. But he says, start light. And of course, you have to really emphasize that arched back because you're really putting a lot of stress on the lower back and the hamstrings, right?
Yes, absolutely. Anytime you elevate yourself, you're increasing the range of motion. And it also increases the lever arm. So the weight is effectively going to feel heavier. So you got to be really careful with that.
Yeah. And then the Romanian deadlift, or the RDL.
The Romanian deadlift, you really want to keep a tight arch in your back, and you're just pushing your hips back as far as you can, keeping your chest out, shoulder blades squeezed together. And you're just going to lower the weight till your torso is about parallel to the floor. And then it's just a powerful contraction of your glutes and your hamstrings to bring the weight back up.
And then, of course, he throws in the dumbbell deadlift and the dumbbell Romanian deadlift variations. Now, the other exercise he has, the king of all exercises, besides the deadlift, of course, is the squat.
The squat is the other absolute cornerstone of any good size and strength program.
Yeah.
Besides the deadlift, nothing else provides that whole body growth stimulus. And because of the sheer amount of muscle mass that's involved, it triggers a really significant systemic anabolic response.
Yeah. I like that he talks about its history, too. It was really a staple of the early days of strength training. And functionally, we do some variation of a squat all the time, just to pick things up or sit down. We are using those muscles.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very primal movement pattern.
So let's go over the form that he lays out for the back squat.
The squat, you want to take an even grip on the bar. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. If you take a narrower grip, it can help create more of a shelf for the bar to sit high in your traps. So that's going to be a little bit better. Your stance is going to be a little bit wider than shoulder width, toes pointed slightly out. Keep a high chest. Keep your head looking forward. Take a big deep breath into your belly. And initiate the movement by breaking at the hips. And think about sitting back and down as if you're sitting into a chair. You want to go down until your hip crease is below your knees. That's what we call hitting depth. Keep your back tight. Avoid looking down. And then you can drive explosively back up.
Explosively?
Yeah.
Push the whole foot.
Drive through the whole foot.
Okay. So then he gets into all these variations, including the cambered bar squat. Now that one looks crazy. That's that one with the curve in the middle.
Yeah, the cambered bar squat is really good if you have shoulder problems.
Yeah.
And you can't take that straight bar. And because the weight hangs lower and slightly forward at the bottom of the movement, it also tends to put a little more stress on the lower back. And it can actually help improve your regular squat.
Yeah. He said it might help improve your stability and strength. Yeah. And then the safety bar squat, which I really like, it's that one where you have the bar and it has those two pads that go over your shoulders and the handles in the front.
The safety bar squat's similar to the cambered bar in that it can be really good for your shoulders if you have shoulder problems, but it also puts even more stress on the lower back than the regular back squat.
And he says it's really great for your upper back, too.
Yeah, it really activates the upper back.
Yeah.
You really got to control it from the front.
Yeah. And the box squat is another great one, but that's all about, really emphasizing that sitting back.
Yeah, the box squat, you want to have a wider stance.
Yeah.
And you're really exaggerating that sitting back motion.
Yeah.
Keep your shins relatively perpendicular to the floor. You don't want your knees coming way forward. And you actually want to sit down on the box.
Yeah.
Sit back on the box. And what that does is it takes the stretch reflex out of the movement.
Yeah. And also, you really get a consistent depth.
Yeah.
Because you're actually hitting that box every time. You're not going, oh, did I go low enough?
Yeah. Yep.
He also gets into barbell lunges and split squats, and those are two different things, right?
They are different. With lunges, you're stepping forward with one leg and then lowering your hips until both knees are bent at a 90-degree angle. And then you push back to the starting position and then alternate legs. Split squats, on the other hand, you're doing it from a static position. So you got one foot forward, one foot back. You're going to lower your back knee towards the ground until your front thigh is parallel to the floor, and then push back up with your front leg.
So lunges, you're moving. Split squats, you're in one spot.
Exactly.
Got it.
Lunges are a little more dynamic, a little more athletic. Split squats are a little more of an isolation exercise.
Yeah. And then step-ups are similar. But, he has you doing those with a barbell on your back, a safety bar, or dumbbells.
Yep. You're stepping onto a box that's typically about 10 to 20 inches high.
And you're really just focusing on pushing up through that one leg.
Exactly. Keeping that other leg straight. Don't use it to help you.
All right. Then he gets into what he calls posterior chain power, which really complements the squat and the deadlift.
Yeah, that posterior chain, all those muscles on the back of your body, is really critical for strength and power generation and injury prevention. And one of the best exercises you could do for that, he mentions the glute ham raise.
I love the glute ham raise. I think it's a really, really good exercise. You do it off of that glute ham developer bench. He said it's one of the most effective posterior chain exercises, really important for combat sports athletes.
Yeah.
And the key is to pull yourself up from a hanging position using only your glutes and hamstrings. You don't want to be swinging or using momentum. You really want to feel those muscles working. Then there's the reverse hyper, which is a specialized piece of equipment. And it was designed by Louis Simmons. A lot of people, know that piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And he says it decompresses the discs, works the entire posterior chain, helps prevent rehab, lower back injuries. It's a great piece of equipment.
Absolutely. And I love it.
And the pull through, this is a good one. You do it with a cable machine. You stand with your back to the machine. You hold that rope attachment, which passes between your legs. And you hip hinge like you're doing an RDL, allowing that cable to pull your arms through your legs for a stretch at the bottom.
Yeah, the pull-through is really good for developing the lower back, the glutes, and the hamstrings. And I like it because it provides a little bit of a different line of pull than you'd get with free weights. And that stretch at the bottom can be really good for growth and flexibility.
And then he gets into the good morning barbell on your back, just like a back squat.
Yeah.
And you're going to stick your butt straight back. Knees are slightly bent.
Yeah.
And you're going to lower until your torso is about 45 degrees, chest out, back arched. That's a really good one. And then back extensions, which, a lot of times people do those on the 45-degree back extension, but you can also do those on the glute ham bend.
You can. And both are very effective at working the lower back and the glutes.
Mm-hmm.
But the 45-degree gives you a little bit of a different angle of attack.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it could be a little bit more comfortable for people with certain lower back issues.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as you can see, he's got a really nice thorough breakdown of the lower body.
Now going up to the core is so important. And he starts with the plank, which, it's like the basic exercise, but he really emphasizes how important it is.
Yeah, and I love that because a lot of people skip right over the basics, but the plank is great for core stability.
Yeah.
It teaches your abs and your lower back to work together as a unit. And, we really, really want to keep your body completely rigid, pull your abs in, make sure you're not sagging, you're not raising your hips. You want to keep perfect posture throughout the entire hold. And, he actually suggests that you be able to hold a plank for 3 minutes before you do any other ab exercises.
3 minutes, yeah. That's something to work up to.
Yeah, definitely. Because, if you think about it, the plank, you're resisting movement.
Yeah.
So it's teaching your body to not move.
Yeah.
And that's going to transfer over to pretty much every other exercise you do.
Yeah. He then gets into straight leg sit-ups, Swiss ball crunches. Now, the straight leg sit-up, you have your legs straight out, somebody's holding your ankles down, and then you come up. But the Swiss ball crunches are great because you get that stretch at the bottom, right?
Yeah. The Swiss ball allows you to really get a nice stretch at the bottom because you're going into more of a rounded position. And it also helps with, improving your posture because you're really lengthening out the spine.
And then he has pull-down abs where you stand facing away from the pull-down machine. You grab the rope attachment behind your head, and then you contract your abs until your torso is parallel to the floor. And then, of course, you have declined sit-ups where your feet are locked in and you're lying on that declined bench. And then he gets into leg raises, hanging leg raises, dragonflies. Now, the hanging leg raise, where you're hanging from a pull-up bar, you bend your knees to 90 degrees. And then you're flexing your hips and contracting to bring your knees up to your upper chest. And you're really rolling your hips forward at the top of the movement. And of course, you can do those straight leg if you're strong enough. And the dragonfly, which is an incredibly difficult exercise, where you're lying on your back on the bench.
The dragonfly is really an advanced exercise.
Yeah.
That really hits the lower abs hard.
So yeah, you're lying flat and you grab the bench above your head and you use your lower abs to lift your straight body up to 45 degrees.
And then, once you can get that, he does mention an easier progression, which is where you're allowing a little bit of hip flexion and a little bit of leg momentum to help you to get it up.
Yeah, that subscap pull-up sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah, that one is super hard. It takes a lot of strength, a lot of lat strength, a lot of shoulder stability, and really just a really good understanding of body control. So that's definitely something to work towards after you've mastered your regular pull-ups.
Then he gets into dumbbell side bends. Rope woodchoppers. Rope woodchoppers are those ones where you're at the Kegel machine, right? And you're going across your body.
Yeah.
And then the band woodchoppers are a variation of those, where you're using a band. And you're going over your shoulder and then down to the opposite knee. So you're in a split stance.
Those are all really great for the obliques.
Yeah. And side raises on the glute ham bench or the 45-degree back extension, right?
Yeah. So you're going to lie on your side and then contract your obliques to lift up. And then you can add a dumbbell if you want.
And then the Russian twist, where you're in a sit-up position, you're holding that weight plate at arm's length. And you're rotating your torso to touch the plate on the ground each side.
He mentions that one's really good, because it works the entire core and is the type of range of motion that you would see in, combat sports and stuff like that.
And then he has a variation of the Russian twist with a barbell.
Yeah, that one's a little bit more advanced. But yeah, you put a towel in the corner or in the rack, and then you're going to lay the end of the barbell against the towel. You're going to take a shoulder width grip on the other end, and then you're going to rotate down and bring the bar towards your hip.
Yeah.
And you want to keep your arms straight when you do that.
And then explosive pull from the obliques.
Yeah. So it really works all the different aspects of the core. You're getting flexion, you're getting extension, you're getting rotation, anti-rotation.
Yeah.
It really covers everything.
Okay. So now we're going to get into upper body pulling power. So focusing on the lats, upper back, and biceps. And, the king of upper body pulls is the pull-up. And he says it's fantastic for the lats, upper back, biceps, brachialis, forearms. And he points to gymnasts. Look at elite gymnasts. They do tons of pull-ups. They have fantastic physiques.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people don't realize the pull-up is a full body exercise too.
Yeah.
You got to use your entire body, your core. You got to be strong to get yourself up over that bar.
All right. So let's talk about how to do a pull-up. You want an overhand grip, shoulder width apart, hang freely. That's the dead hang. And then you want to pull up until your chest hits the bar, squeezing your shoulder blades, contracting your lats at the top of the movement. And then you can change the whole dynamic just by switching to a chin-up grip.
Yeah, the chin-up grip is where you're going to have your palms facing you.
So your underhand.
Yep.
Okay.
That allows the biceps to come into play a little bit more.
Yeah. And then he has chin-ups, parallel grip chin-ups, towel chin-ups, sub-scap pull-ups. The sub-scap pull-up is a really difficult one.
Yeah, that one is pretty advanced.
You're pushing away from the bar at the top while straightening your arms. And the sternum chin-up, where you're leaning back, you're actually trying to get your sternum to touch the bar. And then the mixed grip chin-up, that's where you have one overhand and one underhand, right? And you alternate.
Yeah, that's a good one to use if you have any kind of imbalances. So if one arm is a little stronger than the other.
Now, getting into back thickness, he talks about barbell rows, dumbbell rows, all different kinds of rows. He talks about the bent over barbell row, where you're using that overhand grip Romanian deadlift position, and then the reverse grip bent over barbell row, which is where your palms are up. And that one brings your biceps into play a little bit more.
Yeah. The reverse grip can be good if you want to feel the biceps working a little bit more. But, I like the barbell rows. Those are going to be your mass builders. But then the dumbbell rows are going to allow a little more range of motion.
Yeah.
And a little more of a contraction.
And you can do those one arm too.
Yep. Absolutely.
So one arm dumbbell rows are a really good one. Seated cable rows, you can do those with a straight bar. You can do those with a parallel grip.
Yeah, cable rows are a little bit different. They can give you that constant tension throughout the movement, which can be good. And a lot of people feel them in their lats a little bit better than they do the barbell rows sometimes.
Then there's chest-supported rows, which are really great because, if you have lower back issues, you don't want to be doing too many barbell rows bending over.
Right.
So you can use one of those chest-supported row machines or do it with dumbbells on an incline bench. And he has two variations. The semi-supinated, where your palms are facing each other and your elbows are tucked, and the pronated, where your palms are back. Yeah. And elbows are out. And the face pull is another great one. That's where you're pulling toward your face, standing erect. You're using that two-handle rope attachment. And then there's the hanging row, where you have that bar in the power rack and your feet are up on a bench.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's kind of like an inverted row. It's a good exercise for beginners who might not be strong enough to do pull-ups yet.
Yeah, it's a good progression exercise. Well. Then there's the bent over lateral raise, where you're bent over like you're doing a barbell row.
Yep.
But you're holding dumbbells and you're bringing those arms up to parallel, slight bend in the elbow and squeeze at the top. Now, to get into those craps, he has barbell shrugs.
The classic barbell shrug.
Yeah.
Just shrug the weight up as high as you can, as if you're trying to touch your ears with your shoulders. Hold it for a second at the top. Yeah. That's a good one.
Snatch grip shrugs.
He mentions the snatch grip shrug with the really wide grip. There's some evidence to suggest that the wider grip might work the traps a little bit better.
Dumbbell shrugs. Barbell high pulls. Now, barbell high pulls, those are tough because you're using, your hips, your legs, you're bending over, bar above the knees.
It's like an explosive hip hop and shrug, and you're pulling the bar up towards your mid-chest. But the focus should be on the traps, really using those traps to pull a weight up.
Yeah.
And then he mentions the snatch grip high pull, and then also, clean pulls and snatch grip clean pull.
Yes. Now, those are just like high pulls, but you're going a little lower.
Yeah, a little lower, above a belly button.
Yeah. And he says you can use heavier weights on those, so really good for developing power. All right, now let's get into pushing power. Chest, shoulders, and triceps. And he starts with the bench press.
Of course, the bench press. The foundation.
Yeah.
The foundation of any good upper body program. He really emphasizes the proper setup.
Yeah.
You want a good arch in your upper back, keeping that lower back in contact with the bench. Protracting your shoulder blades, gripping the bar tight, unracking the bar while keeping those shoulder blades tight, lowering the bar to your sternum or your lower pecs, keeping your elbows tucked in at about a 45-degree angle, pause at the bottom, and then explode back up.
Explode back up. And he gives all these variations. The board press, which, I've done a lot of board presses. You're putting a 2x4 across your chest to reduce that range of motion.
Yeah. And he mentions that's good for building tricep strength and overcoming sticking points.
Yeah.
If you have a sticking point in the middle of the movement, that's a really good way to work through that.
Bench press, lockouts. He says that's where you push the bar off of pins at various heights up to lockout.
Yeah, that's just going to help you build that lockout strength.
Incline bench press.
Of course.
30 to 45-degree angle. You want to lower to the upper pecs, and you want to push straight up. And then barbell floor presses and dumbbell floor presses.
The floor press, you're lowering the weight until your triceps hit the floor. And he mentions that you can be good for people with shoulder problems because it's not putting as much stress on the shoulder joint.
And then he has flat dumbbell presses and incline dumbbell presses. Now, he says that the dumbbell presses allow a greater range of motion than the barbell bench.
Oh, yeah. They also require more stability from the shoulder.
And then he has push-ups.
He really emphasizes the importance of proper form. Keep those elbows tucked in.
Yep.
Keep your body in a straight line. Don't let your hips sag.
Yeah.
And go all the way down until your chest touches the floor.
Yeah. And then to increase the difficulty, you can add weight to your back, weighted vest.
Yep.
And then he has chain-suspended push-ups and flies.
Yeah. Now, the chain-suspended push-ups and flies, you're going to be using chains or rings, and you're going to have your feet up on a bench.
So that adds that element of instability.
Yeah. Yes, it's a whole different level of challenge.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to shoulder training, he's very specific about the exercise he likes. He likes the semi-supinated standing dumbbell press. He used to be big into the overhead press, but now he's more into the semi-supinated, which is where your elbows are tucked in front of your body and your palms are facing each other.
Yeah, and that's a much safer variation, a lot less likely to give you any problems.
And then for triceps, partial range, parallel bar dip.
Yep. So you're going to lean forward on those parallel bars and go down about 2/3 of the way.
Yeah. So you're not going all the way down.
And that reduces the stress on the shoulders, which can be good.
Yeah.
Because dips can put a lot of stress on those shoulders.
And then he also emphasizes the importance of doing rotator cuff work.
Yeah, the rotator cuff is super important for shoulder health. If you want to be able to press a lot of weight, you need healthy shoulders. And the best way to do that is with a lot of rotator cuff work. He includes some one-arm external rotation variations.
And then he's also got the L lateral raise.
And then the L lateral raise with external rotation. So you're doing that rotation at the top of the movement.
Yep. All those little muscles, even though they're small, they're super important for overall shoulder health and stability, because they support those big muscles. They keep everything where it's supposed to be.
Right. Now, everybody wants big arms.
Yeah.
So biceps specialization.
Okay, biceps. Everybody wants big biceps. So you got to do your curls. Barbell curls, dumbbell curls, hammer curls. He really stresses the barbell curl as being the mass builder. You want that overhand shoulder with grip.
Yeah.
Curl it up. Keep your elbows in tight at your sides. Dumbbell curls are going to allow you to get a little more supination, which can create a better contraction.
Yeah.
And then the hammer curl is going to work a couple other muscles besides the biceps, the brachialis, and the brachyradialis, which are going to contribute to overall arm thickness.
Yeah. And then he throws in the incline curl and the incline hammer curl. Yep. So you're just doing those on an incline bench. Yeah. And that's going to give you a little bit better stretch at the bottom.
Forearm and grip mastery, the wrist roller.
Wrist roller's a great one.
Yeah.
You can do it a couple of different ways. Some people hold it with their arms out in front of them, palms up. Some people have it a little bit higher. Some people use like a specialized device where they have it set in a power rack.
Yeah.
And that's going to isolate the forearms a little bit more.
And then for grip, he mentions pinch grippers, fat bar holds.
Yep.
Plate, pinch grip. So the pinch grippers are those Ironman grippers, right? Yeah. Fat bar hold is where you're just holding that really thick bar for a certain amount of time. And the plate pinch grip, which I've done a lot of those, where you're just pinching those smooth plates together and you're just holding those, that can get really, really tough. Now, neck strength and stability, a lot of people forget about the neck, but that's really important, especially if you're in contact sports. Yeah. He says you can do partner-resisted neck flexion and extension where you're lying on a bench and your partner is providing resistance against your forehead. lateral neck raises,
Yeah.
neck bridges, which is a great one that stretches the spine, and then a neck harness where you're using a harness to perform those movements.
Yeah, neck harness is a good one.
Yeah. And then lastly, strongman. Strongman is great. It builds power, it builds grip, it builds conditioning. And he talks about farmer's walks, rope pulling, tire flips. Now, tire flips, that's a brutal exercise. He says that uses almost every muscle in your body. The tire you use should ideally weigh about 50 pounds more than your best deadlift.
Wow.
Forward and backward sled drags and car pushes. So, you're really pushing a compact car. So as you can see, we've covered a lot of different exercises.
Well, yeah.
Everything from, the basic